Good and You is the program. MSI, Vermont Glove, Poly Construction are the sponsors. John Fusco, screenwriter. He's the guest. What are his movies? Some, Young Guns 1, Young Guns 2, Thunderheart, Hidalgo, Forbidden Kingdom, The Highwaymen. List goes on and on. Watch the interview and find out. Fascinating. You'll learn how to live life from John Fusco, how to be in the movie business, show business, philosopher. Beautiful man. We've been friends 40 years. John Fusco is up next on Good, yo. John Fusco, king of Prospect, Connecticut. Is that it?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about the king, but Prospect, Connecticut, yeah. I'm a prospector.
You're the king of Lamoille County. Not the king,
Yeah,
but legend of. There's several legends. So the movies that you've written, let's just get so the audience knows. And then you, correct me, I'll start where I think the beginning is. Crossroads with Ralph Macchio, among others. Ry Cooder did a lot of the music.
Yep.
And we'll talk about how you got that was your first. Young Guns, was Young Guns next?
It was, yeah, that was the second.
And let me just go. Then we have if you don't mind, my favorite, Thunderheart.
Yep.
Maybe because my man Sam Shepard was in there.
Yep.
Highwaymen, very, very recent.
Mm-hmm.
The Babe. Is it The Shack? Is that what it's
The
called?
Shack is in there, yeah.
Wait a minute. Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many, many people talk about that heavily. You know, that's a big, they're all big, huge. I'm missing Forbidden Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Sword of
sequel.
Destiny, yeah.
The sequel.
Mm-hmm.
What have I missed?
Well,
Babe, The Babe.
Yep,
Babe.
You hit that one, yep. And, recently, The Wind and the Reckoning, which was a Hawaiian period story set in 1893, which was really my first indie film. It's usually the other way around. You start with indies. I went from big Hollywood films to doing that indie film because it was a labor of love, and we had an opportunity to shoot it during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so directed by David Cunningham, a guy that you know.
Yeah.
We directed it on the Big Island of Hawaii.
Which is where he lives.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And Young Guns 2 was in there. So it was Crossroads, Young Guns 2.
So, yeah.
Thunderheart, Loch Ness.
Loch Ness, man.
Loch Ness.
Ted Danson.
Ted Danson, Jolie Richardson, Ian Holm, the late great Ian Holm.
Yeah. That didn't even say Hidalgo, did I?
No, Hidalgo, yep.
Well, let's get, we'll go all over because
Sure.
I was counting it up. Remind me that I want to talk about Viggo, but when Richela and I were in Judavine years ago with Vermont Rep, what year was that? So what year did you guys end up in Mansfield View?
1986.
Yeah, 86. So whatever many years from then till now, we've known each other. 96, 2006, 16, 30. That's 39 years?
Yeah, we're approaching 40 years.
Yeah, of knowing each other.
Yeah.
I feel, John, and we'll talk about, you've worked with so many people, that you really dig Viggo extra. Is that true? You talk a lot about Viggo and his intensity, and how was it working with him?
I met Viggo on Young Guns 2. And so I'm proud to say I did 2 movies with Viggo, and we're still, once a month, we're in touch with each other, circling number 3. We've what's the third one going to be? And just an amazing guy. They call him No Ego Viggo.
Yeah.
And he's just all about the work. Such an artist. During Hidalgo, he slept out in the desert with his horse and all that. But I met him on Young Guns 2, and he was playing a small role. Mm-hmm. He was riding along with Pat Garrett's posse, and he played a historical character named John Poe, who was a bounty hunter. And it was very precious, and he was a government, hired man. Mm-hmm. And we cast Viggo after seeing one of my favorite films ever, Witness, with Harrison Ford,
right.
directed by Peter Weir. And he had a small role in there as the Amish boyfriend of Kelly McGillis. And there was something about him we loved. And so he shows up, he's on the set, and we're all living next to each other in Arizona where we're shooting. And I get a knock on my door about 10 o'clock one night. And I open it, and it's this guy, Viggo Mortensen, who's playing this fairly small role. And he comes in, he said, "Can I talk to you about my role?" I said, "Oh, that's interesting, you know." And because, you know, it wasn't a lead role. He was playing, you know, a sort of sidekick to Billy Peterson, but he had ideas about his, and he said, "I've been doing some research, you know," and he had that Viggo thing, and he said, "So this was during the time of a copper boom, you know, where there were copper mines and technology was starting to really advance. And I feel, since my character is kind of cutting edge government stone cold killer, that he'd have like an almost futuristic copper scope on his rifle." And I was like, "I love it. We'll talk to props tomorrow." I said, "Thanks, man. Good night."
Yeah.
And that's how I met him. If you look at that movie, the little things in just in the small role, he's got the copper scope.
Yeah.
When he drinks his tea in the scene with James Coburn, he lifts his pinky with the teacup. He's had all these little traits, and when you watch it, you say, "Wow, there's really something there with this guy." Of course, he goes on to do Lord of the Rings. He's Aragorn, and casting him in Hidalgo was it was just such a special time for me, because that movie meant so much to me. But, you know, when I had my first phone call with him, he's like, "I really want to embrace the Native American horsemanship of this character." And I said, I can set you up." And so I sent him to the Pine Ridge Reservation, and he moved in with a family that I was very close to. And the father in that family, Mel Lonehill, is a legendary Lakota horseman. And he took Viggo out on horseback every day, not only teaching him natural horsemanship, Indian way, and how to ride full out through the Badlands, but also he taught him how to communicate with his horse in Lakota language, which his character would have known. So he went deep with that, and just an amazing actor.
Well, anyone listening to this who wants to be a writer or in the movies or write movies or pull chords on a set is just enthused by what they're hearing. I think they'll be really interested when they hear how you literally got your start into your first picture. You were at NYU, and you and Richela, wife of many years, were together down in the village, and then well, go ahead.
Well, you know, I got my start with Crossroads. That was the first movie, and that's kind of been in the cinema conversation again, because there's a movie out that's getting so much deserved attention called Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler. And a lot of the reviews have brought up my movie Crossroads, because it dealt with Robert Johnson and the West African lore of the deal at the crossroads, and blues, authentic Mississippi blues. But I'd have to flash back to when I dropped out of high school.
Okay, good.
At 16, and went on the road looking for obscure blues masters. It was this kind of quixotic quest. I was just obsessed with this music, and namely the Allman Brothers, and I wanted to know what was underneath that. You know, the Allman Brothers would come out, play this music I loved, and they'd always say, you know, "This is Elmore James," or "This is Curly Weaver." I was like, I want to know about these cats. I want to know where it came from. So my travels in the Mississippi Delta kind of informed what would eventually become Crossroads. And so when I eventually left the road, came back, went to night school, got a GED, and somehow got in through the back door of NYU Film School. Crossroads was one of my first student screenplays. And
What about the contest?
yeah,
That's like lore. That's like Hollywood lore.
well, it's, back in that time, which was the early 80s, there was a film competition. And now, you hear all the time about these screenplay competitions, the Nichols Fellowship and all that. But back at that time, there was the only game in town, or the only game in the country, was Focus, Films of College and University Students. And I was tending bar at the NYU student pub, and on a billboard, on a bulletin board outside the pub, was a flyer. And I saw this and said, wow, this is amazing. It's got all these categories: best college director, best sound achievement, acting. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to, down at the bottom, it was best screenplay. And I was like, man, I've got a screenplay. And this was before the Crossroads.
Right.
I've got a screenplay I've been working on in class that my professor really loves. It was called Blues Water. And again, it dealt with the South and with music and Native American issues. And I was like, but I've got about 30 pages to go to have a finished feature. And the deadline was like 4 days away. So I stayed up around the clock. I was working on an old electric Royal typewriter, white out, and banged that thing out and finished it. And I remember I just got it to the post office, hand-delivered it to the post office in Union Square. And I remember I gave the envelope with the script to the postal clerk, and he took it, and I took it back, and he looked at me, and I said, just 1 second. And I just held it and gave it back to him. And then summer came along, and I got some mail at my apartment in the Village, and it said, you're one of the 4 finalists, and we're going to fly you to LA, and you're going to tour the studios and all that stuff. So the Focus Films of College and University Students was sponsored by Nissan. Mm-hmm. And it was a great competition. And so I flew out there, and first prize was a new Nissan automobile. Second prize was cash, and all the way on down, 4 nominees. And I won first place. So I won a new Nissan. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling like the script was going to sell while I was in town. Because I was doing a lot of meetings, I had a lot of interest. I signed with the William Morris Agency, which was massive to me. Wow, I've got an agent. And the agents eventually said, look, the town loves the writing, they love the work, but it's not super commercial. But you're on the right track, and you've got an agent. And so I went back to tending bar, and I sold the Nissan so I could keep going to school. And I started writing my next screenplay, Crossroads. And I had 3 amazing mentors. Actually, there were 3 professors all teaching the class at once. And all 3 were former blacklisted Academy Award-winning screenwriters. So they were old guys. They're older than I am now. Mm-hmm. And the 3 of them would sit at the head of the table: Waldo Salt, mm-hmm. Ring Lardner Jr., Ian McClellan Hunter. Waldo won the Oscar for Midnight Cowboy and Coming Home. He won 2 Oscars. Ring won for MASH. Mm-hmm. Ian McClellan Hunter won for Roman Holiday. And I was accepted into this master's class with a few students to develop a screenplay. And Waldo kind of took me under his wing. Because he wrote Midnight Cowboy and it was a kind of buddy road story, mm-hmm. he took a real liking to the material. And I remember after the first class, he asked me to stay after, and he said, what's your story? And I told him, I said, I left school and hitchhiked and jumped trains around you jump trains? He said, I hoboed with Woody Guthrie. I was like, oh man, this is my man. Yeah. And he really took me under his wing. And I developed the script in that class and then entered Focus Awards again.
Same.
Same thing. I had a finished script and I became one of the 4 finalists again, flew out to LA. Now I kind of knew the drill. Like, hey, I'm back. And this time it sold. Like the first week I was out there, Columbia Pictures bought it. And it was a front page of LA Times calendar. And I'll tell you, Rusty, that was the moment. Was no looking back once Crossroads sold.
Did you get another? You got another Nissan.
Yeah, I got another Nissan.
Did you sell that one?
No, I kept that one.
That story is crazy. Don't they call it the Fusco Award now?
Oh no! What happened was after I had won screenwriting 2 years in a row, they introduced a new clause called the Fusco clause.
Okay.
And I remember when they had announced it, they said, you know, if you look at it, focus is actually it's unscrambled Fusco, and we're introducing the Fusco clause. You can't win. You can only win once.
Yeah.
So I got in under the wire and got that second car, and I needed it. And
there's a small little gap in that story for me. You get the call. You're 4 finalists. You go out there. Then all of a sudden you said to us in this story, I got an agent. So you're out there, you're one of the 4 finalists. What's going on between, hey, I'm one of the 4 finalists, there's the other 3 people. I'm going to go knocking on doors to get an agent. Or the agents at that point saying, hey, NYU, who are those 4 people who are the finalists? We're going to call them in. How'd that work that you got William Morrissey? That's big William Morrissey.
I have to thank a iconic actor from the old times, from the old days, named E.G. Marshall. Do you remember E.G. Marshall?
Yeah.
E.G. Marshall. After I got the GED, I didn't go immediately to NYU. I started at a small community college.
In Florida?
Connecticut.
Oh, Connecticut.
And that's where I met Richela. And we were both in the Stage Society. And then I did 1 year at the community college and then went down to Florida and did a year at Flagler College in St. Augustine. And that was just a personal goal of mine, because back when I was on the road with bands, and we used to drive by Flagler College, it was the old Ponce de Leon Hotel, you know, with elaborate fountains and Spanish architecture. And I once on this bus, I looked down, I said, I'm going to go to that college someday. And the whole bus broke up laughing. And they said, you go to college. And anyway, it's just the way I'm wired. I'm like, I've got to do that one. And so, and it turned out being like, you know, in Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, these steps, these paths that, you know, that we take, we meet those mystical aids along the way. We don't know why we made that move, but it's just kind of calls us, and then we meet our allies. And I met really key people there. One of them was a journalism professor, Jack Smith. He was a former former Today Show producer. And like so many professionals, he retired in Florida and got bored and started teaching journalism at this small liberal arts college. And then there was Jack Hunter, who wrote the famous novel, The Blue Max, which became the famous movie with George Papard, The Blue Max. He was teaching creative writing. So I was like, wow, all these retired, rock stars are teaching here. And so I got to know Jack, the former Today Show producer. And one day he came into class and he listed a bunch of names on the blackboard, and E.G. Marshall was on there, and he said, I got restless and I'm producing a documentary. It's a PBS documentary called American Diary. It's American history. And I need to pick a narrator and host. Who do you kids like? And they went down the list and all this stuff. And as soon as I heard that, when the class ended, I lingered and I went up and I said, Jack, where are you shooting this? He said, oh, Jacksonville, next city over. And we'll be shooting at Barton Film Studios and we'll be working with archival footage. And I said, listen, Jack, anything I can do. I'll drag cables. I'll paint sets. It just, I don't want to be paid. I just want the experience. I really want to be a part of it. And he was like, well, I'm not sure, what we have. But I was like, okay, well, just keep me in mind. And a few days later, the payphone in my dorm hall rang and some student knocked on the door and said, somebody's calling for you. It's Professor Smith. I took the call and he said, what are you doing tomorrow on Saturday? I need some help in the editing room. And so I went with him. That was it. I became a part of that show. And then, so I was working in the editing room. I was painting sets and they were stretched and they saw, we've got a really ambitious young student here. So they threw everything at me and I just ate it up and loved it. And then when it was time to film the host, they had hired E.G. Marshall. And I got hired as E.G. Marshall's chauffeur. So Professor Smith sent me to a department store to get a blazer. And he called in his credit card to get that. Then he let me borrow his Cadillac. And I would drive to Jacksonville and pick up E.G. Marshall. When he would come in, I'd drive him to the studio. And we would talk, me and E.J. and E.G., Mr. Marshall. And I would tell him about my ambitions, my dreams of writing and making films. And I would always end up lost. And we'd be late for shooting. And I remember he said to me when I finally got him to the studio, young man, you should really pursue writing because you're a terrible driver.
So he somehow hooks you up with William.
Yes. So when Blueswater won the Focus Award, I called Jack Smith, Professor Smith down in Florida. I said, Jack, any advice? They're flying me to L.A. And he said, let me call E.G. Marshall. And the next thing I knew, Jack called me back and said, E.G. Marshall is setting up a meeting for you and his agent at the William Morris Agency.
Yeah.
And that his agent happened to be Peter Kelly, who was a longtime vice president, one of the legends of the old-time talent representation. And he was right there in New York. And so I went to 6th Avenue to the big William Morris building, met with him. He said, I read your script. I like it. And we want to sign you. And then I remember he walked me down this long hallway, long palatial hallway at the end of the meeting. And he said, now you're going out to L.A. and they're going to wine you and they're going to dine you. And, they're going to lay out white powder on a mirror and they're going to offer you all this stuff. He said, you just keep your nose to the grindstone, son. You can have a great career. And it was almost like the walk was choreographed because it culminated with a stop at this big book on a podium in the hall. And he said, I want you to just turn through some of those pages. Just go back. I'm going back. It was like Ed Sullivan, Mickey Rooney, and he said,
Judy Garland.
Yeah, he said, you're in a family here with William Morris. My head was spinning. I was like, man. And I was with William Morris for 25 years and would still be if it wasn't for their merger, at that time.
Poly Construction, thank you for sponsoring Golden, yo. They've been in business in Vermont 40 years. Stephen Poly came from Scotland, 75 cents in his pocket. Now he's got Poly Construction. They have 7 divisions. See if I can remember them. They're paying me to. Kitchens and baths, decks and porches, Sparkles crew, window cleaning, Rot Doctors, handyman crew, decks and porches, and what's the other one? You're no good to me. Expert painters. Do you see all those divisions? Thank you, Polo Construction. The point is this: Polo Construction, one call does it all.
Well, there's so many nuggets there of wow. It's actually, and those little nuggets give us already the huge nugget of what, in my opinion, has made you live the life that you wanted to live. You know, I got my agent. I was in New York working for Doyle, trying to act. I didn't know anything about getting an agent, and I would come up in the summers and landscape. One of the summers, I stayed at your cabin, you and Richela's cabin, and I would landscape. And one of my buddies said to me, working that day, he said, Rusty, I got to go deliver some wood for this actor. He's a soap opera actor. His name's Benjamin Hendricks.
Oh, yeah.
You want to go with me and help? I was like, no. He says, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I went up into Sterling Valley.
Yep.
And I remember I was up on the little 6-wheel dump truck throwing the wood off. And my friend Mark Mayette was talking with this guy, Benjamin Hendricks, who went to Juilliard. His mentor was John Houseman. Benjamin had been on Broadway, The Elephant Man. And Benjamin said, and he said, Mark tells me you're trying to be an actor. I'm like, yeah, I'm in New York. He says, you got a good look. I didn't know what that meant. I said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, you could be a killer, a country boyfriend, a fireman, a cop. He said, you'd do great in commercials, if not anything else. When you get to New York in the fall, you going back in the fall, he said? I said, yeah. He says, give me a call, and I'll hook you up with my commercial agent. I got back. I gave him a call, and he hooked me up with Sue King. It was J. Michael Bloom. And in 2 weeks, that's when I was headed. 2 weeks, I booked the Kellogg's Cornflakes ad. And I told you, John, I'm going to L.A. to shoot this Kellogg's Cornflakes ad where I play a Maine lobster.
That's right.
And I'm staying at Shutters, and you're like, you're in the money, man. That Shutters is brand new. So
that's right. And I contacted my buddy Robert De Niro.
Yeah. Well,
was that before it?
It was after I asked you. I said, hey, John, I'm down here, and I was in my early 30s. I was like, I want to do an acting class, but I don't want to get into an acting class where it's a bunch of people going, breathe like this. Because I've done stuff.
Right.
And you said, I'll just call you like your guy I'll call E.G. Marshall. That's what I thought of.
Yeah.
You said, I'll call Robert De Niro because you were producing Thunderheart with him, and you just got out of a teepee in this smoke tent with him.
Oh, yeah.
And he hooked me up with George Loris. That's another story. The interview was about you. Now we have Crossroads, does really well, and then it does well. It's a great flick, and you've had the experience for there. You could take us through that, but let's jump to Young Guns, which is people. I mean, you wrote Young Guns, and everybody says Young Guns, Young Guns, Young Guns, Young Guns, and it's an unbelievable flick. How you're sitting around with the success of Crossroads, and how are you getting to Young Guns?
Yeah, after Crossroads, Richela and I, we moved to L.A. when Crossroads was shooting, and we felt, okay, this is the next step. Richela had been doing a lot of theater, directing off Broadway. She was the star of her department at NYU, but now I had agents saying you need to come to LA. And so she packed up and kind of left the stage stuff so we could stay together. And we went out to LA, and there was a lot about it that I liked because it was kind of a childhood dream. And I was there, but the true writer in me, the authentic creative person, wasn't feeling it. I was like, man, it's just everybody's writing a screenplay here. It's a kind of a company town, and I don't think it's the healthiest thing for my writer's soul. And I had my agents were calling me in and sending me out for meetings for development deals, and back at that point in time, early 80s, mid 80s, all the studios wanted the next young screenwriter, and the Focus Awards were kind of a hunting ground for the draft. It was kind of like the Olympics, and you'd go to the pros. And then having sold Crossroads and having it get made, directed by Walter Hill, a big director, I was taking a lot of meetings and being offered projects, big, superhero type projects. And I'd finish the meeting and my agents would call me and they'd say, you got it. They're offering it to you. I'm like, I can't do it. They're like, what do you mean? I can't write if I don't feel, if I don't feel the story, if I don't feel the material. And I don't want to go down that road. And they're like, but this is how it works. You broke in. There are so many writers out there, so many artists trying to break in, and you did. And now you're getting all the offers, the top of the line offers and top dollar. Of course, that means a lot to agents. And I was like, I want to write on spec, like I did Crossroads. And on spec means speculatively. You're not being commissioned. You're taking a gamble. You're writing your own thing, and then you have your agents take it out and try to sell it. So, although that can be very lucrative, a bird in the hand is, worth two in the bush. So when they have somebody saying, this is what we're offering, we want them to go do this, and Tom Cruise is attached and all that stuff. But I said, no, there's something I'm really dying to do. And then meanwhile, Richela and I were talking, we're like, we've got to get out of LA. Yeah. And we had gone to Connecticut for Christmas to be with family. And we took a drive up to Vermont, where my dad had always had since I was little, a fish camp in Stockbridge, Vermont, on the Tweed River. And Richela, her father was a small-scale dairy farmer, and so they used to go up to Vermont all the time too, but only southern Vermont. And so we did our first drive up to northern Vermont and drove through Stowe. Right as the sun was setting, the snow was falling, and Richela was like, oh my God, this is like Currier and Ives. Anyway, we found a log cabin up in the woods on a trout pond. And that was it. We went back to LA. I had a meeting with
Jim Jackson.
Yep, Jim Jackson's cabin. Yep. And I had a meeting with my agents at Patrick's Roadhouse, which was this iconic breakfast place on PCH on Highway 1 going toward Malibu. Yeah. And I remember this day because in Patrick's, during this breakfast, Arnold Schwarzenegger was sitting at the table behind me, and Sylvester Stallone walked in. And Arnold said, hey, Sly, I really liked that movie, The Cobra. And Sly said, it's a piece of shit, Arnold, you know it. And then Sly sat down, and these guys are ordering pancakes and high-protein eggs. And that's when I had the talk with my agents. And I said, number one, I'm leaving town.
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm moving to a cabin in the mountains. And they're like, why? You haven't been out here for more than a year. You're getting offered all these projects. This is your time. You don't do this. And I said, no, I'm going and I'm writing on spec. I'm going to go there, hole up and write something that I want to write uncommissioned. And they said, well, what is it? And they said, a Western. And they just turned white.
Well, because then Westerns were like in the
They'd
tank.
been dead for 20 years. The last Western to make money before I presented that was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And they said, so they warned me, they said, please don't say that when you go into studio meetings because it's kind of a joke in Hollywood. Well, why don't you do a Western? It's like the Western's been dead for so long. And I said, I'm doing it. And basically they told me it was career suicide. Yeah. And tried to keep me from doing it, but I was just determined. And so we left LA. drove cross country.
That's huge, John.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had Richela's obviously
Yeah.
and backing, because though there were no emails and texts, and it was faxing. Probably you had to fax pages.
That was the emerging technology.
Unbelievable that you
And
guys did that.
FedEx.
And no, there weren't other screenwriters back in those days going, "I'm out of here."
No,
Everybody's like, I'm in there."
Yeah, like right. Now it's remote everything's about remote.
Right. You were like 35 years ahead of your time.
But it was just, I felt like this is what we needed to do. And so I holed up in this cabin in Vermont in the mountains and started writing a screenplay about Billy the Kid and the regulators. And I was fascinated all my life by the fact that Billy the Kid was so young, and that he didn't write alone and whistle sad ballads, and he wasn't even left-handed like all the legends. And he had this group of young guys around him, and no one had ever told that story. And I felt like, because of my experience with Southern rock bands on the road, there was the sort of the camaraderie, the disenfranchised youth, the kind of gang element. And I holed up and started writing that. And it's Richela was she quickly joined the Vermont Rep. That's when you met her and we all met.
Yeah.
But she was doing Sam Shepard. She was doing A Lie of the Mind or something like that. And there was a
Lie of the Mind. That was after we did Judavine. Her,
Yeah.
She was in Lie of the Mind with Jock.
Yeah, she did a couple of Sam Shepard plays.
With them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was a real Sam Shepard mindset around the cabin, which kind of bled into my writing of Young Guns and a certain style of dark humor. And something really special happened in writing that spec script. It's the only screenplay I ever wrote at night. I'm a 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But because she was driving to Burlington to rehearse, I'd stay up all night waiting for her to come back. So I'd write at night. And I finished the script, sent it to, I didn't even send it to my agents because of obvious reasons. I had met a director named Christopher Kane along the way. And I just had a feeling about him. He was a rugged South Dakota filmmaker. And I sent it to him. And I didn't hear back from him for like 10 days. And I called him and I said, "Chris, what's going on?" He said, "I'm making this movie." I showed it to the head of Morgan Creek Studios, this young, emerging mini major. And I've already talked to Sean Penn about it. And so then I sent it to my agents. They read it and they were like, "Oh, this kind of Western. Wow. I never read anything like this. This is like, bringing in all the young guys." And I said, "No, I'm not trying to crack the market." And I think, to your point about how it's kind of become an iconic title.
Oh my God.
Back at that time when all these young guys came out of the woodwork and they're like, "Man, I grew up on Westerns and it's just been a dead genre this is my opportunity. I want to suit up. I want to get on a horse." And we had everybody coming out. And so the movie, got greenlit quickly. It was one of the greatest on-set experiences, living on horseback in New Mexico. I was basically the same age as these guys.
Yeah.
And we really bonded. And the movie came out and opened #1.
Unbelievable.
The box
Fantastic.
office. My agent said, stay in your cabin, keep doing what you're doing. And that's what I did. But the interesting thing is, when the movie came out, although it opened #1, critics quickly branded it the Brat Pack on horseback.
These young guys.
It's a bunch of horse crap, It's not even real history. And I was just like, "What are you talking about?" And now, all these years later, where it's kind of settled and it's kind of become a classic,
Yeah.
I think back to Francis Ford Coppola. He told my friend Ralph Macchio something a few years back, and Ralph mentioned it to me recently. He said, Francis always said, movies are defined by time. And you really won't know what a movie is until time goes by, and it's like wine. Francis knows wine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, as you know, just bubble gummy. First of all, Avi in Dog Beach, one of your books, says it's like show business. Is it show business or movies is like planting an apple tree? Patience, you plant and then there's patience.
Yeah.
But two things that came up to me was, number one, I don't know if a lot of people know that Tom Cruise came in and was it on Young Guns?
Yeah.
One, he came in and you don't know it's him, but he says, hey, I want to just get shot.
Yeah, everybody, like all these young actors lined up and wanted to be in it. And we cast who we cast. But the guys who weren't cast still showed up. Because like something's happening in New Mexico. I'm going to go visit Emilio. I'm going to go visit Charlie. Yeah. And one day I was on the set and Emilio elbowed me. He said, hey, Fusco, have you ever met Cruise? And I turn around, there's Tom Cruise, except he's in full makeup, full wardrobe. And he, he went into the trailer, got suited up. He wanted to get shot. And so he, as you know, now Mission Impossible, the way he loves to do his own stunts.
Yeah.
He got shot off a roof, rolled off the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get shot. Randy Travis showed up.
I worked with
Randy Travis, and he had you did Black Dog.
Black
Dog.
Yeah.
Randy, he showed up and we went into Mary's Saloon and he played a cassette tape for me. He wrote a song called Young Guns. Have you ever heard it?
Yeah. He was way into your movie.
It was really good. It was really good. And then we put him into wardrobe.
Yeah.
And he runs the Gatling gun that guns down everybody in the climax.
I think I might have known that. Yeah, he was way into the acting.
Yeah.
Because I was in the movie with him. That was 1998, and yours was like 88, right?
88, yep.
So when did you shift creatively? Because I stayed at the cabin when you were shooting for a while. When you guys,
that's right.
You were down in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And before that, when did you go from you wrote that one mostly at night? You're a morning guy. You bought the land that you're presently at and have been at for years and years, and you were getting up at the crack of dawn to write all these other ones. And you first you had the barn, you didn't have a house up there. Did you all of a sudden say, well, Richela, you're not in the play anymore. I'm going to be getting up at the crack of dawn. Was that what you usually did or something shifted for you?
No, I just went back to getting up. Yeah.
And what was that look? So did you say to yourself, for all the young people out there wanting to write and everything, did you say, okay, I'm up at 5, I'm going to write to 4, till 9, and then I'm going to go to the gym, the swimming hole, and then I'm going to come up, I'm going to have a bagel, and then I'm going to go to 1. Were you that like precise discipline-wise, or were you kind of
Absolutely.
I gather that.
Discipline was the thing. And, over the years when I've talked about growing up in my career and how my mother was very supportive of my writing and music, and my dad was not so supportive and felt like you've got to find a field that you can survive in. My dad was, first generation Italian American auto salvage owner. And, over the years I've talked about that friction, and how I always called it a healthy friction, because I wanted to prove, the naysayers wrong. And, but over time I came to realize I wouldn't have been able to get where I am without my dad's blue collar work ethic. Mm-hmm. And he was always the first one up before the sun, the first one up to the junkyard. He owned a junkyard contiguous to a pig farm up a dirt road. And he was the first one to open the chain and the last one to leave, and just a solid, hard worker. And I took that blue collar work ethic into this business.
Yeah, I'm in a good time to show
Yeah.
this Paradise Salvage, which is Nunzio.
Mm-hmm.
Nunzio, the young Nunzio growing up in Waterbury, Connecticut, near Prospect, and the junkyard. So this is kind of like your life as a kid. I want to ask, this is an unbelievable book. This is new. I gave mine to someone to read. I've had mine, and it's beautiful, man. With the uncle that walks down the beach with his long toenails.
Oh, yeah.
And clamming.
Digging for clams. Yeah.
Chicken clams. So that when you were in the van with your bandmates and you said, I'm going to go to that college, and you're not. Okay. So yeah, I am. Dad, you got to do this. You got to do this. I'm going to prove to you. Do you think in that way in life, a lot of us have these different things? Are you proving more to other people? I'm going to make Thunderheart, and I'm going to show the movie that's coming out that weekend that Thunderheart's going to, going to do well. Do you think that's mostly competing with other people or yourself, or what's the percentage there? Or are you just saying, I got to do it. I'm John Fusco. I grew up in Prospect. I quit school. My A's and B's, I wasn't so good at it. Who are you going against there?
That's a great question. But, I always felt that, I think that if I had two parents who were like, honey, you follow your dreams and you do, I don't know if I would have had this kind of focus and determination and chip on my shoulder. And the great author Michener always said that, every young writer needs to have a healthy chip on their shoulder. And when I was working at the junkyard as a young kid, my father and his two brothers, my uncles, gave me a hard time. And they were like, yeah, Hollywood, you're going to go to Hollywood, And I used to, that would just fire me up. And I was like, I'm going to show them. And it wasn't so much just like raw revenge or revenge is the best success or any of that. There was something about, and I've mentioned this to Richela in the past. I don't think I've ever said it beyond that before, but I always felt like I want to win one for the dreamers. And that there are young people out there who are hearing this negative input and criticism and being broken. And I fully believe in dreams and that we can accomplish whatever it is we really want to set out and do. And I felt like I've got to prove these guys wrong, not just for me, but for the dreamers. So there have been times where certain people have said to me, when you're doing interviews, can you mention how I really encouraged you? And if they didn't, I would say, I'm not going to rewrite history, because what would that say to the kid who's having trouble at home and he's hearing, you can't do, you're never going to do it. You've got to, go to work in the factory. You've got to go do your 9 to 5. What would, if they heard that, oh, well, John Fusco, he had nothing but support. I didn't have that support. So,
well, the ingredient that's not always there with us humans is your humility. Now, we've been friends for nearly 40 years, and I'm not just saying that because I have a podcast called Good and You, and I'm going to say, oh, you're a nice guy. No. I've never heard or seen you take a success of a picture or a book and, hey, John, how's that picture going? Yeah, we opened number one. Let's go open number one. Hey, Ross, how's that thing you did for that nursing home? What the hell are you talking about, John? Well, you told me last time you're going to do something for a nursing home. It's going to be about 10 90-year-olds around there. You're going to play a song for them. Oh, well. Yeah, that's good, man. That's good, Russ. You keep doing that stuff. That's you, man. You know what I mean? So that's a full thing right there. And it's nice to have that full thing for you. It's nice that you have that. You've worked on that.
we're all artists, and we support each other, and it doesn't matter what level it's happening on, and the of course, you've been doing amazing stuff, and I want to just backtrack just a little bit
Please.
to what we talked about De Niro, because we didn't get to finish. We didn't hit the button on that because I've always been such a big fan of your work. And one of the first things I realized when Richela and we came to Vermont, we're like, the talent, my God, the talent, and everyone was talking about you. And when we saw your work, I was like, this guy's unbelievable. And the fact that you became this kind of voice of our region and our area, and even at a granular level, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And so when you were in New York and you said you were interested in doing some study, I called De Niro, and I that's exactly what I told him. I said, Bob, I'm up in Vermont. You got to check this guy out. And so I sent tapes to Jane Rosenthal, his producer, and he checked them out. And I know Bob. Bob called his
George Loris. Yeah.
George Loris, De Niro's personal acting coach, called him and said, "There's this guy in Vermont, Rusty.
Yeah,
you should get him into your thing."
Well, thanks. And I called George's his assistant, and he said, George will meet you downtown. And I sat on the stage, and George walked down. Who recommended me? I said, my friend John is doing it. Anyway, George turned out, I did 2 sessions with him. It was great.
Yeah.
And thanks for that again.
Yeah.
And that was a great, oh, no, I have a John Fusco story. George said, well, this class that I teach, we have industry people come in, and he had the slick back here. And I don't know what you can do or can't do. So I also teach at Lee Strasberg over the other side of 14th Street. Go over there, enroll in class, ask them to be put in my class, because I think you study from 2 people, Jeffrey Horn from Bridge Over the River Kwai. He was introduced in Bridge Over the River Kwai. You get in my class, and I'll see if you're any good. I walked right from there. Oh, yeah. I walked right from there over to Strasberg. I want to get into this class. Yeah. I want to be in George Loris's class. Yeah. So then I did a couple of classes with him, and he teaches you to don't do anything. Do a scene with someone. Don't do anything. So I'm the scene partner. We were doing Fool for Love, and I would go to her apartment, and she would be like, acting. And I was kind of like, I don't think this is what he wants us to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of half acted. We went and did the scene for him, and he's like, that's not what I want. Now go back and come out and do it the way I told you. And I was able to do that because, the Shepherd stuff I'd already came out and did it. And he goes, I want to talk to you after class. And everybody else was like, so he said, you can come in my class. So I did, you got to earn it, man.
I remember that, yeah.
You got to earn it. John, I got these.
That's awesome.
I got these notes, and we're just going without notes. But I want to make sure maybe I have, well, this is one off of the philosophy and the inner workings of John Fusco's heart and mind and soul. Most intricate could be bombs, could be lines, could be extras, copter shots. Most intricate scene you ever wrote, and then was there on the set to, like, this is going to be a big one. I'm sure there's tons of them, Marco Polo and everything. Is there anything that stands out like you were like, this is a biggie? I remember that day.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like every movie had one of them, whether it was Ralph Macchio dueling against Steve Vai in Crossroads with the guitar duel, and how intricate that was, with Ry Cooder and, composing and overseeing the music, and Steve Vai and who's playing what part, and Ralph, who had been woodshedding for so long, but he had to really hit those notes. I mean, that was intricate. Some amazing stunts in Young Guns, the horses that go over the cliffs. The guys just ride their horses. That scene where Billy Peterson says even their horses are crazy. But I think the most intricate was probably in the Forbidden Kingdom, which was the first ever on-screen teaming of Jackie Chan and Jet Li. And they fight each other. And that was 10 days of shooting a fight between Jet and Jackie. And I wrote the fight on the page.
Because
I do kung fu, and it's been a big part. Martial arts have been a big part of all my life, and I had been really that was a period in my life where I was super focused on kung fu training, and so I wrote the choreography into the script, and it was the martial arts action director on that was Wu Ping. The director was Rob Minkoff, who did a fantastic job, but the guy just handling martial arts choreography was considered the grandfather of the martial arts movie genre. This is the guy who did all Crouching Tiger, and going back to everything. I mean, he was so meeting him was unbelievable, and then having Jet and Jackie together. But in the first rehearsal meeting, where we were doing a read through of the script, and Wu Ping had a toothpick, and he's sitting there and he's looking at his translated script, translated into Chinese, and he's turning page after page after page, and he says something in Cantonese, and the translator said, Baye says, usually the writer just writes, and now they fight. And so I said, I mean no disrespect. I know you do, but I'm just very passionate about, I believe that every action scene should reveal character, and these styles all mean something in here, Anyway, he said, no, I like it. I like it. We're going to do it. And so then he found out I was training with his boys in the early mornings. And he started to see that, I was very serious about it. So over 10 days, this fight involved tiger style, praying mantis, drunken kung fu style, all these different styles coming together. Jackie's slapstick, Jet's spiritual enlightenment through Shaolin combat, fighting in this temple. And these guys were moving so fast that we had to actually slow down video playback to check it out. I mean, the two masters. And so that was we called it back at the time, it was just secretively known because we didn't want it to get out as the J&J fight. Because everyone said, Jet Li and Jackie Chan are finally doing a movie together. Are they going to fight each other? And so, yeah, I would say that was one of the...
Yeah, 10 days of a fight. I mean, it's really, really, really dangerous, all that stuff, and has to be precise. You got to mask it with their camera shots and everything. Speaking of...
Oh.
Tell us about... I love this book also. Little Monk and the Mantis, a Bugger Boy and the Birth of a Kung Fu Legend. So there's a lot of... this young boy learns from his mentors we learn what Kung Fu is in here. And so tell us about what time of your career you decided, I want to put this out, or does somebody, some agent or somebody say, you ought to do a children's book, or how does this come about?
Yeah, it's
I love it.
Thank you, Rusty. I never thought I'd write a young reader's book, but and you bring up an interesting question about what chapter of the career, because when I talk to aspiring writers and other creatives, I always talk about this well. I say that a writer should have a well that. Or a rain barrel, I think, to use a Ray Bradbury analogy, it never runs dry, right? But in this rain barrel are your deepest passions over the course of your life, but mainly going back to your formative years. What were those deepest passions you had? And in my rain barrel, I had Western Americana, Native American, the blues, the American South, and martial arts. I never touched the martial arts because that was, I never wanted to go down a chop sake road, to use that terminology, I didn't want to cheapen my love and respect for martial arts by doing a kung fu movie. But the industry will go through different phases. And for instance, early in my career, the Americana, Crossroads and the Blues, Young Guns, Thunderheart, there was an appetite for that. And I was there to deliver that because I love it and I believe in it. Then at a certain point, I would say, in the early 2000s, that kind of dried up. And there became a real hunger for Chinese-U.S. co-productions. And I was like, okay, so I'm writing my Americana stuff, but it's not getting made. But there's this big appetite for this. It's not a stretch for me. That's just going into my rain barrel and taking some of that mojo and saying, I can do that. And I felt like, okay, but I definitely don't want to cheapen it. And around that time, I had returned to serious martial arts in Essex, Vermont, and found a master of Shaolin praying mantis kung fu named Arthur Macaras, who ran the Vermont Kung Fu Academy in a little strip mall on Pearl Street in Essex. But when you walked into that little unassuming space, it was like you were back in Shaolin Temple. He was an inner door student of the Grand Master, 36 generation descendant of Walloon Temple. And so it was the real deal. And he was also an Chinese herbalist, acupuncturist. And I studied there. And I just loved the praying mantis system. At the same time, my young son was starting to study Taekwondo, and I wanted him to learn the deeper precepts of martial arts. And so two things came out of that. One was the Forbidden Kingdom, which started as a bedtime story I made up for my son, for Gio. Each night, we'd go to bed and I'd tell him this time travel story. And I wanted to hook him, but through this time travel, I wanted to introduce him to the lore, the legends, the classics like the Monkey King, that inform martial arts. And so as that came together, it ended up evolving into a movie, into a screenplay. Meanwhile, I was flying to Hong Kong regularly, meeting with Jet Li and Jackie and talking to them as we were preparing to do the Forbidden Kingdom. And on one of those flights back, I was just so deep into it. And I remember one of those flights back from China, I was like on my third pot of green tea, and I was in an elevated state, an altered green tea state, and so deep into the Kung Fu training. And I started thinking about the origins of the praying mantis style, which in a nutshell were about this young Shaolin monk named Wang Long, who studied tiger style, dragon, snake, crane, all these different animal styles, but was always beaten and bested. And in a state of despair, he runs away from the temple and he's out in the mountain wilderness and he befriends a praying mantis. And he watches how this praying mantis fights. And he adopts the system, the style. He catches the mantis. He becomes his teacher. He keeps him in a little bamboo bird cage and studies with him. And this is it's part of the history / lore of the style, the praying mantis style.
Yeah, and you note that in the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the boy returns to Shaolin Temple. And they said, "Where have you been? You ran away." And anyway, when they start matching him against Crane style or Tiger style, or he beats everyone. And this is the story of how he did that. So I wrote the book on that flight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it's it's not long. It's a children's book. It's written in a lot of poetry.
Yeah.
It's very concise, but the wild thing is that it really it won several children's development awards, character building awards, and I wasn't expecting that, but it was recognized as, because really at the heart of this book is that martial art is the art of peace, that it's the art of avoiding conflict. And it's about discipline and character building and respect for nature and learning from the natural world around us.
It's a delightful book, and with the so-called fighting in it, I don't think parents should be scared to go, because it's not written in that way. He keeps losing at the beginning. It's something else.
Yeah.
I have back to Paradise Salvage.
Yeah.
When you were growing up in Prospect with your father, who was unlocking the key and getting in the big crane and picking up, and your mom working and cooking for you. Were there wise guys down around and in there?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even in Prospect, Connecticut. We're near Waterbury, Connecticut, for folks who are listening.
There's some when I don't know if it was before we were on before we went live, or we were having a conversation. I was talking about that lower tier that's always fascinated me.
Yeah.
And growing up working in the junkyard, which was, Fusco's junkyard, or as they pronounced it back in Waterbury in those days, Fusco's.
Yeah. Some people say Fusco.
Yeah. Every salvage yard in New England was Italian American owned. And it was just one of those things. And we would, after we would crush the cars, which is why winning that Nissan was so important to me, because I had a few of my cars crushed as behavior modification back in my wild teenage days. And, but we would load a big truck like yours, and it would be stacked high with flattened cars, and we'd drive it to Bridgeport and unload, and they'd be shipped to Japan. And then, we'd have guys come up to pick up truckloads of alternators, or what we call number 2 scrap, and all that. And they were some real characters, real Italian American, kind of, I call them in the book, I think I referred to them as the polyester mafia. But they were wise guys, and there were always these rumors about, who's in the trunk and who's getting crushed and all that. And so as a young kid, a dreamer who was working there, and, not under very happy circumstances, because kind of criticized and looked at as a dreamer, I would watch all this stuff and take it in. And I just remember looking at some of these Goomba characters and saying, wow, okay, something's up with this guy. But he's not exactly Michael Corleone,
And that plays the trunk thing, guy in the trunk plays big in Paradise Salvage.
Well, because there was this rumor going around about, what was in the trunk, and the trunks in these cars in the junkyard were so magical, because I had to try to find the magic where I could find it. And so if a car was towed in, it was like, okay, we're going to, go through the car, see what's in there. Then we take it around back. I shoot off the lugs, remove the tire. They come out, they flip it. Well, first of all, it's dropping the hook into the engine, yanking the engine. So you strip that thing down, flip it on its side, cut the gas tank, pour the gas into our home gas supply. And then she'd be fed to what my father called the yum-yum machine.
What's that?
It was the Car Crusher.
Mhm.
He took the name from an episode of The Little Rascals, the episode called Yum 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 Eat 'Em Up, and he had a sign in front of the machine, Yum Yum Eat 'Em Up, and then we'd feed the cars into the crusher. A very, very, normal childhood.
MSI, Manufacturing Solutions Incorporated, up to Morrisville. Garrett Herchak and his wife, Bethany, I had her in Sunday school. I taught her. And MSI has a lot of segments of their business, and they employ hundreds of people, and we love MSI. But they have Far Oasis Airbnb, summer and fall getaway. Actually, escape to VT, Vermont, any time of year. It's private. 4-bed, 4-bath home with gazebo, mountain views, game room, hot tub, hike, bike, swim, etc., etc. It's msivtrealty.com/Airbnb or at Far Oasis, FARROASIS. MSI, Airbnb in it. Thanks, MSI.
Well, I have two things. One's a bubblegum question, basically, and then the other one's about a specific actor. The bubblegum question is, you have one Italian dinner to choose to eat. What's your fave?
Oh, wow.
Because you're quite a cook. You and Richela put on some spreads, man, yourselves.
I grew up with my Nonna. Was amazing. She was from southern Italy, from a little village called Ponte Landolfo, near Benevento, west of Naples in the mountains. And I mean, her meals were incredible. Richela, my wife, she grew up with the same southern Italian relatives, and she's someone who has valued that and learned, and I reap the benefits. I'm so grateful.
And Gio too.
And
Gio just looks and he dresses and he's
yeah, Giovanni Fusco
loves the food. And...
but she, I would have to say, man, anything that Richela cooks with broccoli rabe is just amazing. But oh no, so I've got it. So this happened during my series Marco Polo. I did in 2014. I created and was the showrunner of a Netflix original. It was one of the first Netflix original, one of their first 4 original series.
Hit. People loved it.
Marco Polo was, it was and it's crazy, and I will get to the meal.
Yeah.
But
we got time, right, man?
It was at the time, and now keep in mind, I never ran a show.
Right.
I never did TV.
Right. Real quick, explain showrunner. Just real quick.
So showrunner it's really the role has emerged during this second golden age of television, which is the streaming era. And that is the showrunner he really oversees the entire production, including the directors. It's their show. If you're a creator showrunner, it's really your show. You've invented the show and you're overseeing every component. You're signing off on every helmet a character's going to wear, every set design.
And one can write Marco Polo, create it in his mind, write it, and not be the showrunner. That's an extra thing.
Yes.
You're right.
Right. Yep.
So you're going for it when you're everything in Marco Polo, man.
Yep.
I remember you saying this is. I said to Richela, man, it's going to be a big one for 3-4 years. She said, go for it.
But the intent,
that's never going to get up Maine in the summers to hang out. So
So I knew I was going to be going to Asia, going to Malaysia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Venice, Italy. Not long enough in Venice, but a lot of time out in the Kazakh steppe, and Borneo. So we weren't just making Marco Polo; we were living it, and it was intense. When we were set to go, and I mentioned to producing one of the producers on it, and I said, this is my first time show running. I haven't done. In fact, I haven't done anything in TV. And they said, "Well, you realize that this is going to be the most expensive television series in American history?" And I was like, "Oh, Jesus, pressure."
Yeah.
And it was until The Crown, So, but it was in Venice where I was so into Marco Polo, the Marco Polo, the character, that I actually tracked down his lost last will and testament.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. We found it in this archive. It had been moved. Nobody knew where it was. The mayor helped me track it down. And there's actually a video where I had to give them 30 days heads up for them to adjust the humidity in the archival chamber so the parchment didn't crumble. And this lady wheeled it out with white gloves, and they let me see Marco Polo's last will. So anyway, I was so deeply into that and living the Venice culture that I discovered a meal called sarde and sour. And it was one of Marco Polo's favorites because long distance travelers would take it because it was salted, and it was sardines, cold sardines with onions or raisins. And I'm just like sarde and sour. It was just like life-changing. And
Well, Marco Polo, correct me if I'm wrong, came out of, so you and Gio, your son, Giovanni, you took a trip down there on horseback, Mongolia. So I don't know this. Did you do that trip for fun, you and he, because he's way into history, old Gio is?
yeah,
Or were you saying, let's go down there because I got an idea about a program?
Gio, from the time he was just like this little kid, 8, 9 years old, would go to sleep with atlases, and he'd go under his covers with a flashlight and study atlases in the world. And he had this longtime fascination with the Mongol Empire and Chinggis Khan and the history of the Khans. And he, for as long as I could remember, would tell me, "Papa, we've got to go do a horseback trek across Mongolia. We've got to follow the Chinggis Khan trail." I said, "We're going to do that. We're going to do that." And then he'd mention it it never went away. And then it started to get to the point where he was like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So now he's 13 at this point, 2007. I'm in China shooting The Forbidden Kingdom with Jet and Jackie. And I call home, check on everybody. And he said, "Hey, I'm doing good. I'm doing Poppy, do you know that Beijing is only a 55-minute flight from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia?"
He's 13.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I know." He says, "Just wondered maybe this is our chance." So I got off that call and I talked to my producing partner and I told him. And I said, "Yeah, this kid was," and he just looked at me and he said, "I got your back. I got the set covered.
Nice.
You have him fly out here. You guys go to Mongolia. Go do that trip. When are you ever going to be out here?"
Yeah.
And we did. So he came out, and so Gio and I, and of course Gio and his thing is like, "I don't want to do a tourist trip. I don't want to be I don't want it to be this. I want it to be the real deal." So I reached out to people on this set in China and said, "I'm looking for a grassroots guide." And we found a guy who would take journalists up into the taiga forest to look for shaman and things like that. And we met with him, and Gio, the first thing Gio wanted to do was go get his Mongolian deal, his robe, his thing. And this guy just loved it. He's like, "Who's this 13-year-old American kid who wants to dress Mongolian, live Mongolian, ride horseback for 2 weeks across the steppe?" And so I hadn't even been thinking about Marco Polo at that point. But along the way, following the Khan Trail, that name kept coming up. And I just kept thinking, wow, in America, Marco Polo is a swimming pool game,
Mhm.
and very few people know any more beyond that. And when I had been in Italy in the past, I had found that Marco Polo was like, I mean, a lot of the people I talked to didn't even believe he existed. They thought it was a myth and all this stuff. But in Mongolia, he's a legend, and I mean, not a legend, a historical hero.
Mhm.
There's a magnificent statue of him in the town square with the falcon on his wrist and the book under his arm, and because he was viewed as someone who was a non-judgmental traveler
Mhm.
who brought back knowledge to the West about how advanced and civilized Asia was. And so when I got back from that trip, I felt like, oh man, Marco Polo. This was right when these long form series were happening. It's a long form series based around Marco Polo, where he's our eyes into this world.
Mhm.
And that's how that all started.
Yeah, that was very, very. Yeah, I talked to people. Marco Polo was great. I say, I know that guy that wrote that. Unfortunately, or maybe who knows, Val Kilmer passed away, and we see him in Maverick, Top Gun,
Yeah.
as as a calm, cool, and collected guy. But on Thunderheart, so your movie Thunderheart, which Graham Greene, Sam Shepard, Val Kilmer, this is quite a few years ago, used to tell me, man, Val's coming in hot. So in a nice way to, give the man his due as he just passed away. What about Val Kilmer? What are your takes on him?
Val was coming off of The Doors, where he played Jim Morrison. And he was hot, but he had this reputation already for being, insufferable even.
Oh, really?
Not even
Rip Torn type.
Oh, yeah, it was just like, life's too short. You don't want to do this. He drove Marlon Brando insane,
Mm-hmm. What movie was that? Michael?
Oh, the Island of Dr. Moreau. That's right. That's where Brando was like, he showed up one morning with a Campbell's soup can, empty soup can tied around his head, and everybody said, "What is that?" And he's like, "I'm trying to reach my," whatever. He was sort of busting Val for his quirks and his things.
Okay.
And, have you ever tried acting, son? Type of stuff. But
Lord.
Val didn't care. He didn't. I mean, Val he idolized these guys, but he had confidence in his certain mojo and how he would get into a character. And
was he difficult on the set with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely the most difficult actor I ever worked with.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
That's what you would say.
And up front, he called me the day we cast him. He called me. I mean, he said, "Let's go make a movie." And his passion was sincere. And we went out to the res, and it was tough for me because I had been spending a lot of time on the Pine Ridge Reservation for 5 years before we made that movie. I knew everybody. It was one of the reasons why we got permission to shoot there.
Yeah, they've given you a lot of I don't know, we call them awards, or you're part of their and so, you're part of their bloodline now in a sense.
So adopted into the Oglala Nation.
You'd go into sweats and everything.
Yeah. They call it hunkiapi, hunka, a relative. And it's like so when you're adopted into a Tiosh Baye or extended family, and so that was going on, and so I was very cautious about. Now I'm showing up. I've been wandering around for 5 years doing sweat lodges, and they started to, is this guy really ever going to bring a movie here? And then one day I show up, De Niro and camera trucks, but we pumped a lot of money into that impoverished reservation, and the people supported my screenplay, and I had worked closely with them in the development. So I was concerned about Val and his behavior. But the interesting thing was he was playing an FBI agent who was trying to hide his minuscule Native American heritage, which is the only reason why the FBI sends him on this case, because they think it's good PR. And they're like, we're sending you a Native American agent. He's like, I'm a third Cherokee. But it goes deeper, what he has hidden in there. But the way Val works is he wanted to shoot chronologically, which we did. So his character is a spiritually bankrupt, hardcore FBI agent who resents the Native Americans and resents being sent there. And Val conveyed that to the point where on the set, all these natives who were my relatives were coming up to me going, I don't like that guy. He's FBI. And I'm like, no, that's Val Kilmer. That's not Val. I know Val Kilmer. I've seen his movies. That's FBI. And I'm like, well, he's doing his, and he was like, I don't want to make friends with the natives. Right? But as his character evolved, little by little, I started noticing his trailer door was open. All the native people were hanging out. Mm-hmm. He was smoking the pipe. They're burning sage. He's, it just, that's the way he was. And he drove me crazy. I mean, there's
trying to change. Hey, John, what about, can I say this here?
Well, yeah, I mean, he would, thank God for Sam Shepard, because that's another thing. So,
right.
So Sam, Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, is going to be doing my dialogue. And not only Pulitzer, but my wife's been doing his plays for years.
Right.
It's just like he's a hero.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting in a little schoolroom at the Red Cloud Indian School on the reservation doing rehearsals, and Val starts going off script, and he's doing he would do this thing with his eye, and he'd just start going into a stream of consciousness, Jim Morrison type thing, and I'm just sitting there going, what's he doing? And I just remember Sam Shepard going, that ain't in the damn script. And I was like, oh, thank God Sam's here. Sam and his dog Boo.
Yeah.
They drove from Virginia because he doesn't fly. But so all that kind of stuff was going on. And then one day I show up on the set, South Dakota Badlands, in the summer, sweltering. And the PAs hand out sides when you show up on the set. They're miniaturized script pages of the scene or scenes you're going to be shooting that day. So I get my sides, and I'm walking around, I start reading them. I'm like, I didn't write this.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I did. And so I see Michael Apted, the director, who passed away not long ago, great director, and we'll always love Michael. He's like leaning against a junked car on the set. And I go up to him, I'm like, what's this? Who did that? And he's like, Val had a friend in, and they were jamming on some stuff, and I'm only going to give him one. I'm going to give him one take at this. And I was like, I'm going to freaking kill him. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to do it. And then Michael goes like this, and Val's sitting right there behind the wheel, and he's just staring straight ahead.
Jeez.
Just listening, just like, and I can tell these stories because ultimately, at the end of the day, the movie was cut and it was done. I looked and I said, that son of a bitch, he knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. He almost killed all of us, but what a performance.
Yeah.
He really captured my character, really delivered. And the night of the premiere, he called me right before the premiere in my hotel room. And he said, I want to just say I'm sorry if I put you through hell, but it was not easy being the character you wrote.
Yeah, complimentary.
So I love Val. The work he's done, Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
Just a brilliant, brilliant artist. And I'm so sad to see him go. A little footnote. When and he reached a certain point where he was anathema in the industry, and no one would touch him, no one would work with him. A studio couldn't get insurance, and I kept still trying to get him roles. Before we got Viggo, I was campaigning for him to star in Hidalgo. Several other films. He called me at one point and said, "I'm aware of what you're doing out there, and thanks for getting my back." So, anyway.
Well, safe to say, if any young, let me take that from you.
Oh yeah.
Safe to say, if there's any young aspiring actors or writers, that worked for Val Kilmer, but you might not want to go that route. You know, you might not want to design unless that is what your method has to be. You know, it's good to do things how you feel in the creative arts, I guess.
You know, I think
you don't want to.
I think the industry has evolved in a way where is this no cussing?
You go ahead and cuss, yeah.
We have a no asshole policy now, and that's really become
Okay.
that's the standard. It's and we didn't have that in the past. It was like, okay, we've got this actor. There's you never be in his eye line.
Oh,
Don't look him in the eye.
right.
When you're on this, and now it's like, no. We won't tolerate. You don't have the job.
How we can go. We could ask you. How'd this guy go? What was it like to be for that woman? But
Right.
I was reading Maureen Dowd, was a writer for the New York Times for years, and she came out with there's a review, a book of a lot of her profiles
Yep.
of people. Just recently came out, and I saw it advertised. And I like, she was profiling people back 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And she profiled Kevin Costner.
Yep.
Not glowingly.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't normally bring him up. I'm not busting Kevin Costner's chops. I don't know Kevin Costner, but you do because the Highwaymen.
Yeah.
The Highwaymen, again, drum roll, please. Bam. Hugely, fantastically, critically acclaimed picture that you did very recent with Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner. You didn't find Kevin to be, although when she this profile was from when he was like early on and a lot of stuff was happening, and she says, people came up to get his autograph and he was kind of like, hey, can't you see? And anyway, that's just one writer. So how is it Kevin and Woody? Is it true about Woody I don't care, is he high alta, but he's so good.
Yeah. No, but I have to say, the Highwaymen is so dear to my heart because it took 17 years to get that movie made.
You used to always talk to me about this when you were going out with those guys and through, the marshals.
Yeah, Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
And we, when I wrote the first draft many years ago, and I got it to my producing partner, Casey Silver, who happens to be the guy who produced Forbidden Kingdom, Hidalgo. And that's another thing I would always say to aspiring writers. If you can find a producing partner, the one who goes out and is a pulling guard for you and does the fighting and puts the whole thing together, it's just such a gift. And Casey was amazing. When I turned the script in, he's like, I love it. You nailed it. I love these two characters, these crusty Texas Rangers hunting down Bonnie and Clyde. Who do you see? Who are the two guys? And I said, Redford and Newman.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Yeah.
And Casey laughed. That's it. Just remember him. He laughed for a long time. I said, what's so funny? He said, we'll never get them, but that's a great place to start. And so then I take Gio on a Disney cruise like 2 weeks later, and I get an email you can go and check this is back when you didn't have your phones, you'd go into this whole cubicle of laptops on the cruise. And I get this email from the producer, from Casey, and he says, Redford loves it. And he said, don't send it to Paul. He's going to fly to Connecticut and hand deliver it to him because he doesn't want him to squirrel his way out of this one.
Because lore goes that they wanted to do something again.
They were always looking for the trifecta. They did Butch and Sundance, The Sting, and they were looking, what can we do a third? And Redford said, this is it. This is it. And man, that just meant so much to me. And then, so Redford did fly to Connecticut, brought the script to Paul and read it to him. And Paul was like, man, that's a lot. We're chasing on gangsters and it's a lot of dialogue. And he's like, Paul, we got to do this. And so Paul signed on, and it became the news in Hollywood. Redford and Newman are getting back together again. I was like, oh my, so this is like my career highlight.
Yeah.
And I started meeting with Redford, meeting with Paul. I'd meet Bob in L.A. And then I'd fly to New York City and meet Paul at his Fifth Avenue place. And
93rd Street.
Yep.
1120.
I still remember him. We're drinking coffee, and he'd come in from races, from his racing in Mexico. He has STPs. Had the jacket, the shades, and we're drinking coffee, and he pulls out a little plate of Fig Newtons, and he said, well, one of these, my daughter makes them. And I said, so this is a Fig Newman. That's a Fig Newman. So I'm having Fig Newmans with Paul. And he kept saying to me, can you just cut my dialogue down a little, And I said, really? I mean, this is sort of like your character's the garrulous, talkative, charming one. And he said, too many Budweisers. But Paul, it was great, and it was all going forward. And then I learned Paul was sick. He was getting sick. So that fell apart. And so Redford was like, okay, and he felt terrible. But he's like, I still believe in it. Who can be the other character? And the studios were like, if it's not the Redford Newman project package, we're not doing it. So 17 years go by.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Kevin Costner, Woody Harrelson get to that right age. In fact, they were exactly the true historical character's age.
Oh, okay.
And Redford and Newman might have been, well, no, they were much older. And I always justified that as back in those days when you've been shot 18 times and, but we were able to cast Kevin and Woody and the director, John Lee Hancock, one of my favorite directors, Texan. He had been attached all the way back to Redford and Newman. And so he never gave up on the project.
Yeah,
Next thing I know, we're shooting down Louisiana. Yeah. And Kevin was just fantastic.
Great.
Just very, very, charming, respectful, hard worker.
Man.
Yeah.
Makes it happen. Yeah.
We shot the ambush of Bonnie and Clyde on the exact same road where it happened, in the exact same ditch where the car stopped. And I remember Kevin, we were shooting that scene. We were in between setups, and he was standing down on that dirt road. He had his gun, his BAR, his suit and tie, and he's just standing there staring. And there was something that he had asked me a question earlier, and I had the answer. And I go, there's Kevin standing on the road. And so I went down, and I said, hey, Kevin. He flinched. He goes, so sorry, man. He goes, I was just in the moment thinking what it must have been like when my character heard that car coming around that bend, knowing what he had to do. Woody traveled in his own bus. It was always full of smoke. The magic bus.
You do what you do, to get there. Kevin was really there, and you can get to those places. I've been there, and that's a good feeling. Or it's too much sometimes. If you're doing too much of it, like Val, it was a hard show for hard character to play. The one Newman thing, I sound disingenuous when I quoted Newman's actual address, but when I was in New York driving for the Doyle family, Bill Doyle, I would pick Bill up every morning. 7 o'clock at 1115 Fifth Avenue. So I'd be on 93rd Street, going this way, looking at the park, waiting right there. And Paul Newman was big time for me because I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
And he would come out of his door of 1120, and he'd have his gym bag or something with him. And instead of holding it here or holding it here or putting it over here, he always, it had 2 hoop handles.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't a big gym bag. And he had it over here. So he'd be walking down it. And you know what I've been doing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
Full hand
Hold
loop.
my thing right over
Yeah.
there. So I got that from
No, I mean,
Paul Newman.
those guys, Steve McQueen, Newman,
I know.
Coburn, and that's another thing that I would really love to take the opportunity to say is that because we're talking about young guns and
Yeah.
all these young guys, I feel that I've had the opportunity, being the age that I am, starting pretty young,
Yeah.
back at
20s.
yep, yeah, that I've had the opportunity to work with Omar Sharif,
Yeah. Coburn?
James Coburn, Brian Keith,
Man.
Terrence Stamp.
Yeah.
Those the old guns. And those guys to be able to have those guys, giving life to your characters and your dialogue, and to be able to sit with them and experience that, to kind of touch that golden era. That's just been one of the true highlights.
What about the other side of the story? Kathy Bates, how is she? Just a fun, she looks like a fun woman, right? Misery. She's unbelievably great.
We wanted Kathy Bates to play Ma Ferguson in The Highwaymen back when Redford and Newman were involved. And that never changed. And so then when we greenlit it with Costner and Woody, we called her and she was like, I'm in. And she was the perfect Ma Ferguson, and she was great. She always wanted to steal my hat. She said, I love that hat. She would always take off of my hat. But she now she's having a real resurgence with Matlock. Is she?
Oh, yeah.
She's the new Matlock.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We could go on forever. And how's it going, by the way? Yeah. We got Michael and Joe.
Yeah.
Joe's
Great
wife,
crew.
Allie.
Great team.
Yeah, Michaela the cat hasn't shown up. These things, people say with this video podcast thing, they say, well, some of this is great, you're going to do that, Russ. Some of those are just so long, and I'm like, you can listen to it 1 minute at a time.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Sips.
Yeah, man.
You do it in sips.
Well, now, you get around in the world, and not political. I'm not a political.
No.
We never talk about politics.
No.
But when you're going around in the world, not just this year or last 2 years, but in 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, do you find a lot of, when you're in the airports, there's a lot of trouble going on, or a lot of people delivering your tea at these little blue shacks that you're going into down this other, hey, dude.
Yeah.
Right on cue, mate.
Oh, we get
Look at that. Our animal handler just let her go, She's not a lapper, but she'll take a pet.
A nice...
Hey, Michaela, we're talking
you got a raccoon tail.
Yeah. Great cat. You see how she just chills?
If you're talking Vermont company, run right there. Good. Sam Hooper down Randolph. Their high school is Randolph Union High School, so they call it RU High. But anyway, they're down there, 8, 9 people making Vermont gloves. Goat, 100% goat. I'm making fun, but these things, I've given so many of these for gifts. You leave them out in the rain, they're supple. I'll drop something like a penny, pick it right up. But they're rugged. This thing goes down to your vein. That usually gets railed when you're honing on something. And you just take some salve and lather them up. Then you get online, vermontglove.com. You salve them, and then you bake them. Honest, for the allotted time. If you don't go get Vermont gloves, I don't know what's wrong with you. And these are working gloves. They also have gloves for outdoor, like skiing and stuff like that. So thanks, Sam Hooper and the gang down Vermont. Go right down Randolph. Run right up to the factory. Go in and see him. Thank you very much, Vermont Glove.
What are you finding out there, John? You get around and you also have it's not a gift, it's a desire to be friends, and I love friends with so many different type of people, ages, sizes, but I mean, it's obvious if anybody's listened to this podcast up to now. What are you finding the tone of the world is? Your personal feel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a broad question.
Right.
I mean, come on, but
there's a lot of anger out there. And look, I live here, spend a lot of time in New England states, but I also spend a lot of time out west, as I always have. And part of the year I live in Tucson, Arizona. Still hang out with old cowboys, old friends, wranglers from Young Guns and Texas Rangers, and then down south with my music stuff, and so what I see, there's a lot of anger, and I feel like there needs to be a correction. That anger isn't craziness. It's not insanity. It's not coming out of nowhere for no reason. It's not something in the water. There's a reason for it. And the pendulum needs to swing. It needs to find its balance. And I think that, we've always been trying to find our balance. And I think that's what America is. And I don't think there's ever going to be any perfect. I think it's going to take some seek first to understand before trying to be understood. Look at where this stuff comes from. And I just see this fighting and this rage and going at each other's throats. And I just feel that, everyone's got their side of the story, and we need to look a little deeper and understand it. But I just hope that compassion will always be the priority, and that we can't become hardened, and violence. The violent thing is just it's never been the answer.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Jumping off from that, actually, because there's so many people like to create and write, and someone who has a creative mind, young or old, and they can put it together. Here's another broad question. What do they need? What would you suggest they do to write a screenplay? So you went to school for it, and there's little programs you can get on, but should they really dive into that? Otherwise, that feel that they have is maybe just going to lay there, or do they? Where do you direct them?
It's a really tough time in this business, and I came into the business at a time where, we like to joke that the streets were paved with gold, and studios were throwing dumb money around and buying spec scripts for $3 million. And now it's contracted, and everyone's so risk averse. And we have AI, the specter of AI. So I came out of film school at the right time in Hollywood history, where I had the opportunity to be one of those drafted, kids from Focus, and have been able to build a 4-decade career. And now, where the industry is today, instead of hunting down the young up and coming, they want the old proven veterans because they don't want to take the risk. They want the insurance. So I feel like, wow, so I kind of hit it coming in, and I'm kind of hitting it going out. And as grateful as I am for that, because I never want to stop working and I love what I do, I'm really worried about the future of the industry and young artists, having their moment, having their opportunity. There's a lot of demoralization, where they kind of look at it and say, wow, AI is going to replace me anyway, and no one wants to take a chance on a young writer. I still, at the end of the day, always believe that story matters, and that if you kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation, Rusty, is that I didn't want to do the superhero things, and I said I'm going to move to a cabin in the mountains and write what I want from my heart, and that stuff kind of rose to the top and got noticed and got made. And so I would just always encourage young artists to find your own voice. Remember that rain barrel and those passions. My son Gio, he's recently graduated from the same film school I did, from Tisch School of the Arts at NYU. He was star of his department. He's writing great stuff. And he's come out at a time, first he comes out and gets hit with COVID, the industry shuts down. Then a record-breaking writer's strike, actor's strike on top of that. All of these challenges. And then again, the threat of AI, and why am I even trying? The studios in 5 years are just going to have AI written scripts. And but he goes back to that rain barrel, back to where we rode across Mongolia when he was 13. His love for ancient history, fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. And he's listening to the old man and writing that stuff he loves. And he just sold a TV series. I can't talk about what it is, but it's ancient history. In the style of Vikings, that type of thing. And it rose to the top. People noticed it and said, there's passion in here. There's a real voice. So
Yeah, so those things are still being bought. And
Yeah.
now, where's he? I got a couple more things here. We'll just skim the music thing, and
yeah.
so we can drop in a nice song
Oh,
for the folks. But I have this little goofy stuff here in the back. Where's Gio living these days?
he's back home.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
He's
'Cause he gets around.
He gets around. He's, world traveler, and he went out and he was actually going to hang his shingle in London because he was working on a historical project there when COVID hit. And they said, if you're not, if you're going to have other plans other than living here, you better go now. And he left and he came back home to Vermont and is settled in. And now where everyone's working remotely, he just loves it. He loves being back here.
I hope to run into him. I just got a note here. It's funny that Malcolm Gladwell, people always be quoting that 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Something that, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, if people quote it. First of all, is it 10,000, not 9,999? Or is that just kind of like you got to do something for a long time? And I don't know if Gio's been doing it for 10,000 hours. He just sold something, so that's like, what does that really mean? 10,000 hours to have your...
I believe in it.
You do?
I do.
Well, I believe in it too.
Yeah.
I believe that you got to put a lot of work into it, but that's like just like pigeonholing it into, it might be 3,700 hours.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like Bruce Lee used to say, I don't fear the man who has practiced 10,000 moves every day. I fear the man who's practiced one move 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. And I've always said, I don't think I'm the most talented writer out there. When I went to NYU, I came in, I was like instantly intimidated by the students around me. And I was like, oh man. But it didn't take long before I realized they're not putting in the work.
Right.
And if you're the first guy to open the chain lock in the morning and the last guy to leave, and you put in those repetitions, you keep working at it and working at it. And, you write all day and end up with one page of something good. It's like, it takes 30 gallons of sap to distill down to 1 gallon of maple syrup.
Yeah.
And
Well, I believe it too.
Yeah.
I was just specifically saying that I was specifically branding the 10,000 hours. Larry Bird used to say, I shoot 1,000.
Kung Fu. That's what, the Chinese expression, Chinese
You're good at
term,
something.
Kung Fu, means achievement of a skill over time and repetition.
Right.
So doesn't just apply to martial arts. Like a chef could have good Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And that's in
a housewife could have a mother. Yeah.
That's in this book, those exact lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I believe in it. That's all I had too. I was going to ask you also if you had the choice of being able to have discipline or talent, which one? You only get to have one. You'd have it was kind of the obvious answer.
I've muscled through everything. Anything that I do and love, whether it's my writing, music, martial arts, I always feel I've had to work harder and have the discipline. And so I have confidence and faith in the discipline. I feel like if you're getting up before the sun and you have a program, and when I started writing at 5 a.m. every morning, it became like a superstition, right? But also, when you're a creative artist, you have to be your own boss, as you know. You've got to crack the whip on yourself. I would write from 5 in the morning until 5 at night. I take a break and I go down. The swimming hole wasn't there yet. I go down to Locomotion in Waterbury with Chad Kudo.
Yeah,
I'd work out there, then come back and continue writing. As the years went on, I would still start at 5, but I'd quit earlier and earlier and still accomplish the same amount of work. Now I start at 5. I'm done by 11, and I've accomplished more than I did in the early days that went all day. So it's just, you get that Kung Fu.
Yeah, I mean, the times I stand at the bar and just going over and over. I've done, there's some stories I've done for 30 years.
Yeah.
And when I have a show coming up, I'm going through those things word for word. By the way, I'll do a 2-hour show. Back in the old days, I'd be coming home a 3-hour drive, and I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
While you're driving back?
Yeah, because I came up with something new.
Yeah.
So I wanted to redo it and make sure I marked that and solidified that new piece if I remembered it, that came up to me. And I've done stories over 1,000 times, and I'll be doing the same story, and I'll come up with something new, and I'm sitting, my mind's going, hell almighty, it's been 25 years and I just came up with that great part of it. You know what I mean? So that comes with that. So I totally agree. Yeah, Larry Bird. I was just
your pauses, like, if when you're doing these things, do you ever come away and say, what, if I noticed tonight, if I just wait a little longer on that?
Well, that's a whole thing of mine. I mean, when I learned things the old day, when I started I come out on stage and I used to take the drink.
Yeah.
Of the Gesser, and I just stand there.
Yeah.
Doing less is, I teach these kids up at PA, People's Academy, the writing, comedy, and the first day they get there and I say, well, you do this every year, first day, it'll be 3 students or 4 students, come out on stage and just stand there for a minute, I'll time it, and then go off. I said, because that, for most people, is the most difficult thing to do. And, if you can do that, this class will be easy. And you know what? I've done this for 6 years. Not one of the kids couldn't do it.
Huh.
They just had confidence and they looked up there. And the thing that happens, it's the accident, right? The accident during the play.
Right.
Deal with it. Take time. Don't worry about silence. And then go back to your thing. I said, when people are driving home from the play after watching it, they're saying, boy, those 2 people were good in that play. Somebody's going to go, yeah, did you see when that thing fell? And the guy looked at that? That was the greatest part. You know, so all those silences and the pauses. But when I learned my stories, I learned them so rapid fire, and I really had to slow them down over time. That was a thing that wasn't good.
You taught my son Gio that whole thing. He was doing a show.
Yeah, Bishop
when he was a student,
Yeah.
a grade school student, and you gave him that. And
Came up to your house.
yes,
Yeah.
he did, and we always appreciate that. But he brought the house down with in that the opening moment coming out, he had the whole place
Stand there.
hysterical, and then everything beyond that point, they were with him.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll do another couple of these. Would you mind coming up again?
I love it, man. It's great. You've got a great team, great
really
space.
Really fun. Thanks. I want to ask you just a couple of those like things, just little fun things where I say this or that, and you go this.
Oh yeah.
It's just only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Some of these are obvious, obviously.
Okay.
City or country?
Country.
Violin or fiddle?
You know, there's the difference between a fiddle and a violin.
Yes, I do, but go ahead.
Violin has strings, a fiddle has strangs.
Right. So, fiddle.
Fiddle.
Or
all day long.
And some people say it's the manner in which you play it, but yeah, strings.
Yeah,
strangs.
Strangs, man.
This one I'm not sure. I'm almost sure. Football or baseball?
Oh God, football.
Yeah, Jets. You still on the Jets?
Jets.
Yeah.
1969. Never.
Oh yeah, Joe.
Joe Willie.
Broadway Joe.
Yep.
Joe Willie.
That was the.
So you were what, 11 or something? I don't want to give you your age.
10.
Yeah.
I was 10. January 12th, 1969. I was playing out in the snow, and my father called me in, and he said, "Come on, we're going to watch football." I said, "I don't want to watch football. I want to play in the snow." He said, "You've got it. This is the Super Bowl, and me and you are rooting for the Baltimore Colts because they have nice crew cuts, and they have nice high top black shoes, and they're
Johnny Unitas, yeah.
Johnny Unitas, Earl Morrall, Tom Maddie, and they're playing this upstart bunch of hippies from the AFL, Joe Namath, and they've got sideburns and long hair, and so they were doing the introductions of the teams, and I was like, I want the Jets. And he's like, you're going to be crying. You're going to be humiliated. And the Jets won. It was the game that changed. That was that Oedipal moment with my dad. Where,
with your dad.
That's where I became like, I'm rebelling. I'm going for Joe Namath and the Jets.
That's young to be. Meat sauce or carbonara? Bolognese. Yeah.
Meat sauce every time, yeah.
Whose was the best back in the day? I know your mom. Love her. She's great. She's still alive. Hers, Richela's, the grandma. They're all good in their own way.
They're all good in their own way, but you just can't beat Richela. She's just,
Yeah, I remember we used to come up for Thanksgiving. She'd make that homemade cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
Right?
No, she's got the touch, and she loves it and embraces it, and it's like every day it's not like you're gonna have some random meal. Like every supper is gonna be something like, wow. She's like, I wanted to make something that Joey's Aunt Mary used to make down in Little Italy.
I've enjoyed many Thanksgivings at your house.
Yeah.
You invited a couple of people, and you folks make so many things. And it's really one of the only, I won't think back into my whole life, but it's really the only time that I remember that you sit down and you have a prayer.
Yeah.
And it's the only time I really remember being grateful for the land and the animals and then enjoying the meal. Otherwise, ma'am, it's going down. But when I have Thanksgiving at your place, what is that prayer? Would you share that with us? Is that too private?
Yeah, no. It's just that, the having lived closely with the Native American people, it's Thanksgiving, giving thanks. And although it's controversial in the Native American world, there are a lot of non-natives who say, I'm not going to celebrate Thanksgiving because it's disrespectful to the Indian people. And it was a big sham, and it was, we betrayed them. And yes, and that's true. But the real grassroots elders that I know always feel if any occasion where they can do a wopila, or gratitude for the gifts from the bounty of the land is a good day. And so I learned that from the elders. And so we always pray for the four-leggeds and the winged ones, the things that creep and crawl on. Grandmother Earth and Father Sky, and all our relations, the ones who have gone beyond. And
Yeah. It's always the people.
yep. And
It's really nice.
we make this Wopi line, but then we always take a spirit plate.
That's right.
And so we
Oh, yeah. Tell about that.
Yeah, so we pass the plate around, and everybody takes a little something from their plate, thinks about those who have gone on or weren't there in their lives, and then we take the plate out and do an offering, leave it out on the stone wall.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful,
Yeah.
man. Those thanks.
But I have to say, so my favorite Thanksgivings are at your place with
My mom and dad.
your mom and dad, Marilyn and Bill. And I always loved how Mom, she had a number for the turkey. This is like old number 619 or whatever. It's like the number of turkeys she had. Man, she just put out a spread, and her shoe fly pie, and then it was Thanksgiving, 1993, 10 below zero. Clear as could be, big full moon. We had that Thanksgiving. Richela was 9 months pregnant. And she was like, I feel good. And she's eating the turkey and all this amazing food. Then she had that shoe fly pie. I think she had a second slice, and that was it. That shoe fly pie brought Gio into the world.
That night you went home from Mom and Dad's house. It was a mile from here.
To Burlington.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Dad would regale you of his profession of his Greyhound bus driver.
Greyhound
He'd
bus
bring the hat out, and
then his train sets.
and you were gracious.
And then his, he was amazing. And his stories about Danny Aiello, the actor driver. Danny Aiello, the great Hollywood actor, was one of his.
He was the PA, and he was like a dispatch.
Wow.
Bus number 14, Danny Aiello. And then Dad would always tell me about this Danny Aiello when he was coming out in movies, and I was in the 19, 20, 21. And Danny Aiello, Dad? Was, all right. And I was at the Carnegie Deli. I just took a trip down to New York, I think to see if I could move to New York. I went down there for a couple of days and walked all the way from Houston all the way up to 100th Street, and just saw people coming in and out of their apartments going, yeah, they're just doing what everybody does. It's just in this place. And I'm in the Carnegie Deli, and in walks Danny Aiello.
Yeah.
Because Dad thought it was the greatest thing. He'd see Danny Aiello.
Yeah. Right.
And he goes and sits in the back. He's got a big black overcoat on.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
And the waiter comes up, and I said, excuse me, is that Danny Aiello? Yeah, that's Danny Aiello. It's Mr. Aiello. Oh, man, I'm not going to go back there. But Dad,
You got.
So I write a note on a napkin. Mr. Aiello, I didn't know how to spell it. My father, Bill DeWeese, said he used to drive Greyhounds when you were this dispatch, and he always talks of he's happy for your career. And I said to the waiter, could you take that back to him? It's quite a ways back. It's Carnegie Deli.
Yeah.
With the corned beef, and I was dripping down. And the waiter takes it back, and I didn't look back, but the waiter said, I gave it to Mr. Aiello. And then Danny leaves, and he turns and looks at me, and I don't know if it's true. He turns and looks at me and goes, I remember your father. Really cool, man.
Yeah.
So, is it cool for me? Yeah. But when I go home and tell my father, God dang, these little stories.
Oh, man.
And you can't sit in your ass and get them kind of Ford or Chevy.
Ford.
Yeah, I know the Raptor. Oh, here's one. Let me think about what I think you might say on this one, Answer. And we'll get the music just a little bit. We'll tease it.
Yeah.
And we'll drop in a song of your choice.
Okay.
Joe will drop it in. We'll get out of here. Godfather 1 or Godfather 2? From a professional, I want to hear.
Godfather 2.
Okay. Why?
I think that Francis was up against so much with the first one, that he was fighting so many wars, and that didn't stop him in any way. But I feel like with the success of The Godfather, that it was like all green lights for him. And I think that I just felt like he had the faith, and most importantly, he had De Niro coming back as young Don Corleone, which is one of the most amazing
Yeah.
performances. He realized at that point that, he had, with the foundation of Mario Puzo, he had created a new mythology.
Right.
And it was just so rich and full, it was just a more complex canvas and so compelling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, how many times have I seen it? I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, my dad used to sit and watch them, and he would he wouldn't look at the subtitles when they spoke Italian. I think there was this. I don't know if back then they had a subtitle switch to knock that off, but he loved. I would just see, he'd be sitting. Would sit on a little stool real close to the TV.
Really?
Yeah, and he'd watch when they would speak Italian. And he'd tell my mother what they were saying, and it just made him feel connected to his because he was fluent,
Oh, really?
from most of his life.
Yeah, that's cool. The
Yeah.
little stool. Do you have that stool? No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Not recently, whatever, you started as a kid, you quit school and you went bluesing. You go back to the beginning of
Yeah.
the podcast, and now you're like heralded in the blues world of the day, which means nothing other than you're out there, and you've put out how many of these? And I got to tell you, it's unbelievable. The third one, your most recent record, I call it record, you get these cats to
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
You go down, just really skim that if you would for us. But also, here's the John Fusco that spreads it around. You put together a group of local folks,
Mhm.
including some guy that might be in high school,
Mhm.
PA that you hear, and you put them together.
Yeah.
You play some big gigs with these
Yeah.
people, these young people and old
Yeah.
people, men, women alike, and you go play this music. This music is incredible, and Joe's going to drop in. What's off top of your head? There's Poutine,
Oh,
but
yeah,
which
yeah.
song, if you had a choice for us to drop in and hear right now, would you have Joe drop in? Maybe at the end of the...
Yeah, I think as I go over, and so these 3 albums
Mhm.
are comprised of
First one.
that's 10, 20, and then there's a double album, so 30, 40 original songs
Original.
recorded over the space of 4 years.
Mhm.
And that
Just fast.
but that was sort of because it kind of came around full circle, and it was shooting the Highwaymen in New Orleans. It put me back in my old stomping grounds, and when I got re-exposed to that music and that vibe, and kind of coming face to face with the ghosts of my past, and when I lived in a doorway in New Orleans, something just woke up, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling the music again. And I connected with the sons of my old music cronies, like the sons of the Allman Brothers
Mhm.
and Betts and
Mhm.
the North Mississippi All-Stars. And we got together to just talk and jam. When they heard my original stuff, they hit record. And that first album was just an accidental
Oh,
jam session. And they said, we're going to release this. And then it led to some other records. But I would say a tune that I think where I felt, okay, I'm kind of hitting the zone of my sound would be from the John the Revelator album, It Takes a Man, which features Sarah Morrill on the trombone. And
is that the one I placed in this?
yeah. And Reese Norman, she's a Memphis gospel singer, and it's a story about It Takes a Man was sort of one of my little parables about turning the other cheek in conflict, and understanding that if you lose your cool, you're going to lose your truck, your house, your dog, your land, and it takes a man to walk away.
Give us a little, I did a story last night promoting John and I taping this. It's not going to be up today. And then I just went, so I got to have some Fusco music in there
Yeah.
on the Instagram. And I just, out of nowhere, picked that
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
And what's the groove? What are the words at the beginning of
You're
it?
drinking down at Uncle John's. Some guy got a good buzz on. You say, what you looking at? He said, I don't like your hair. You'd really like to hit that man. You lose your truck, your house, your land.
Yeah, so there it goes on and on.
It makes a man to walk away.
But then you're on the fence. So Joe will be able to drop that in after
Okay,
you've just done that live.
You're drinking down at Uncle John's. Some guy got a good buzz on. You say, what you looking at? He said, I don't like your hat. And I want to say that when you hear that trombone player on the bone, that's Sarah Morrow, who was Dr. John's band leader and trombone player. I met her on a flight from Burlington to JFK. And when I ended up inadvertently being seated next to Dr. John in first class. And so somehow we connected on that flight and she became my trombone player.
Yeah.
But she just killer grooves, Dr. John style.
And beautiful song. Was it the third double? Is it the third album, a double?
The third album, no, it's called Borderlands.
So that was Borderlands to me when I listened to it. I said it to you. It's just like you're listening to this great music written by you and produced, but it's like you're watching a movie. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah. And the songs are connected, almost like episodes, even though they travel through different time periods of the West. It's all connected to the sort of the American Western ethos and a lot of the stuff we're grappling with today, like the song Coyote Man, which is about immigration, and some of these different tunes.
Beautiful song. Is that the one where there's the great song about your wife, love song to Richela?
Applejack Brandy. No, that's Applejack Brandy's on the second album.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful.
John the Revelator.
Hey, man. Yeah,
Hey.
well, I mean,
Thank you for having me.
on.
It's
We can
been
go on and
awesome.
on. We can go on and on here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'll see.
It's always great. Always great to chew the fat with you.
Yeah. We'll see you on the road.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. Stick close to the fence.
Johnny F. That's right. Stay close to the fence. Thank you.
Thank you.